What's up guys, I'm BTC, welcome back to the Respawn. Today we're going to be talking about fan-made heroes, better role classification, and what McCree could get for a new hero ability. If you're new to the Respawn series, here's how it works. There's way too many questions for me to possibly answer, or topics for me to make videos on. So what I do is I grab up a bunch of the good questions, and then I put them all together in this Respawn video. So if you have a question or an idea that you'd like me to talk about in the next one, leave it down in the comment section below. First question, do you think fan-made character concepts will ever be put in the game? There are plenty of full 3D models and more and attacks that could very well be implemented, but do you think it will happen? I think it's very possible that Blizzard might draw some inspiration from some of these fan-made characters, but are they going to take them and just put them into the game wholesale? No, I don't think that's going to happen at all. Again, I think it's very possible they might look at some of the design, or maybe some of the abilities, or just any of the general concepts. Sure, they might kind of attach that to a new character. But you have to understand, when Blizzard adds new characters, they do so to fill a role that the game is currently missing. Like when Ana was added and when Moira were added, it was because there wasn't enough healing in the game. And when Brigitte was added, it was because dive was too strong. And Orisa, we needed more tanking. So they always fill a need, and I don't think the fan-made stuff is ever really going to be a perfect fit for what they need right now. Do you think it's easier to rank up as a flex pick or someone who just mains 2 or 3 characters? I'm a flex pick because I assume that it would help my team the most if I filled in the gaps, but I simply cannot play every character or even every class very well. You should not be trying to play every single character. That is an incredibly bad idea. You should be playing at most 4 or 5 characters, and that is it. What makes you a flex player is that those characters are in different roles. So rather than just specializing in damage or specializing in tank or healing, you pick several roles and then you try to learn a couple of characters in each. So it doesn't even have to be all 3 roles. Like, you could just do DPS and tank, or tank and healing. You can just pick whatever you want to do, but don't try to do every single character. And on top of that, one of the main things that a flex player will do more often than others is they're going to switch to kind of fit the situation a little bit more. So if you're playing as the flex role, and all of a sudden the enemy team busts out a Junkrat and your team is having some trouble, then you might switch to a Pharah to try to counter that. Or if they're running a Pharah, then you might just quickly switch to a McCree or a Widow or something to try to counter theirs. So that's kind of what a flex is. It doesn't mean you have to play every single character. That is an incredibly bad idea, as I said earlier. If you want to play flex, I would suggest picking 2 roles and then 2 or 3 characters from each role, and that's it. Don't go any further than that. Also, in terms of is it easier to rank up, from bronze to diamond, I think flex players are going to have a little advantage, but once you start getting into the really high ranks, the master and grandmaster, then you need to start specializing a little bit more. There are some players that can still do flex really effectively at that high rank, but most people are going to be specialists. Why do you think such heroes like Reaper, Sombra, etc. are unpopular in the Overwatch League or even in high-ranked comp? For the Overwatch League, I don't think popular is a good way to describe stuff. They will use the characters that are going to help them win, because there is a boatload of money on the line. $3.5 million for Season 1 of the Overwatch League. So they don't care if they like a character, they don't care if it's viewed as being cheap. All of that stuff is irrelevant. They play and they want to win, and they're going to use anything they can. If they're not using certain characters, it's because those characters are not good enough to help them win in whatever the current meta happens to be. Now, as far as the high-rank players, there's a little bit of this that still carries over, but people are still going to have their own personal favorites, and they're going to use that stuff. So that's why you might see a random top 500, whatever it happens to be, because that person just likes the character and they want to use them a lot. But the overwhelming majority of the players that you see in High Master, Grandmaster, and Top 500 is going to be kind of a mirror to what you see in the league, because they're using the characters that are objectively stronger than the others at that particular point in time. Would you say that it's possible to have a main tank without a shield or some other large barrier? just for clarification, main tanks are Reinhardt, Orisa, and even Winston. They have very large barriers that absorb a tremendous amount of damage from being able to hit your teammates. Their primary role is that protective kind of thing, and that's what a main tank is. So, is it possible without the barrier? Yes. But it would still have to provide some sort of significant damage reduction, and I think there's two ways to do it. You could either have like an area of effect thing, where the tank will have some sort of aura or a shout or something, and all of the teammates that are within the area will then take, let's say, 20% less damage for the next 4 or 5 seconds, or something like that, right? Or he could have a bodyguard type passive, where he basically puts a buff on a teammate, and that one teammate will then get reduced damage. Or what you could do is you could have the tank himself absorb the damage that the teammates would normally have. So if one of your teammates gets hit with 100 damage, then maybe he only takes 30 of it, and then the tank takes 70 of it. Or maybe it could be split 50-50. Obviously, there's lots of balancing and stuff you could do, but is it possible to have a main tank without the barrier? Yes, absolutely. Blizzard just has to get a little creative with it. Don't you think Blizzard should change the hero roles like flank, healer, damage, and frontline, thus making it easier to make a hero and makes players understand better, just like paladins? Don't say that too loud, people will get mad at you. But yes, you are right, Blizzard should be redoing the roles, the classes for Overwatch. Right now, they're far too generic. I've talked about this in the past. Blizzard tried a very simplistic approach. They just wanted to give a general idea of what the characters can do. Unfortunately, it kind of backfired, because what ended up happening is they made the roles way too simple. And for new players and inexperienced players, this is actually more of a detriment than a benefit. So the higher up players, the higher ranked players, the more experienced players, they understand the difference between Roadhog and Reinhardt. They're not going to use them in the same situation. They understand that even though they're in the tank role, they both function in wildly different ways. But newer or inexperienced players might not fully realize this. A good example was from one of my own games quite a while back when Overwatch was first released. We were defending on Numbani, and some of my teammates were arguing over what kind of DPS we should have. I believe we had like a McCree and a Pharah or something, which at the time was really good, but they were absolutely adamant that we needed to have defense category characters because we were on defense. They thought that we needed to have like a Bastion or a Torbjorn or a Junkrat or something because we were on defense and we had to have defense characters. So there is definitely a bunch of confusion about that. I think they're really bad names. Like you have the offense category and then the defense category, and I think that can definitely be confusing for the new players. And also, just the characters themselves can be wildly different from other heroes in the same role. Genji and Tracer are very different from Soldier and McCree. Roadhog and Zarya are very different from Reinhardt and Orisa. And then you have Lucio and Brigitte, who are wildly different from Ana and Mercy. Yes, they all function kind of similar, and the more experienced players will understand this, but the new and inexperienced players don't. And I think if they were to break it up, it would be very easy for them to break it up, too. It's not like they have to do a ton of work. They would simply have to, like, put a little line divider in between them, put a little different name, and maybe some description saying this character role specifically good at doing XYZ. And then the next one does this, and that sort of thing. So it would be a minimal effort, but I think it would be a great help for the new and inexperienced players. What would you think of a new ability for McCree, needed or not? If you have an idea for a new ability, please tell me in the next Respawn video. So I don't really think he needs a new ability. His ultimate definitely needs to be changed, though. Right now, it's pretty garbo. Most of the high-skill McCree players will use his ultimate as a zoning tool instead of trying to get eliminations with it. Or sometimes you'll see the high-skilled McCree players, and even those in the Overwatch League, they'll use McCree's ultimate to simply reload. Like, they activate it and instantly cancel it so they get a free reload. Like, that is how ineffective McCree's ultimate is at the higher ranks. So it's pretty garbo, and it definitely needs to be changed. But as far as a new ability, I was thinking about this the other day, and I know some of you guys, well, that's not balanced. It doesn't matter. Just put that aside for a second, okay? This is just for funsies. if you were to add a new ability, I was thinking maybe like a wanted or bounty kind of thing, where he would place it on an enemy player, and then they would basically get a damage resistance thing put on them, like a damage amp, basically kind of like Discord. So they would take additional damage. It wouldn't be as strong as what Zenyatta has. Maybe it would only be like 10% or 15% or something like that. But whoever gets the final blow, the killing blow on that person while they have the wanted thing on, the bounty thing, they would get an extra 10% on their ult charge. And just for clarification, McCree gets 4.5% roughly for every body shot he lands, and he gets about 9% for every headshot he lands. So it's wouldn't like 10% wouldn't be like a crazy amount or anything like that. But I think that would be cool. You place it on someone, it would only last for like maybe 6 or 7 seconds or something, and they get a little bit of extra damage on them, and whoever gets the final blow would get a little bit of a bounty, basically. That's kind of the idea. I think that would be cool. Whether it would be balanced or not, no idea. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of The Respawn. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, leave them down below. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out my Discord server. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter. The links for that stuff are down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this all possible. If you'd like to see what kind of cool rewards you can get for supporting the channel, check the links on screen and down below.